Hello everybody and welcome back to 89 Games and our continuing guide series on the Gloomhaven characters. Today we're going to be talking about the Hatchet from the Jaws of the Lion DLC. So Hatchet is quite an interesting character. He's got a lot of fun abilities, primarily a ranged character, and his primary focus is going to be around his favorite, which we'll talk about in just a minute when we get to the cards. But he is a high damage dealer on single targets, or you could also build him as more of a multi-target ranged character with a different type of build. So you can basically go with the favorite, or you can also ignore the favorite and do a build that does less damage on a single target but kind of spreads more damage around. So with that said, let's go ahead and talk about those cards, starting with the favorite. So this is the main mechanic of the class. The top of the card allows you to add +3 attack to a single target of any of your ranged attacks by marking it with your favorite. When that target dies, it will drop your favorite. If you loot that hex, return your favorite to this active ability card. Gain 2 XP, and it lasts for the entire scenario. So basically what this does is it pulls your favorite out of your pack, and you use it to attack enemies. Every time you use it, it adds +3 to a single attack, which is how you do high single target damage. And then once that target dies, you literally have to walk up to its corpse and pull the axe out, essentially. You have to go loot the item from the corpse to get it back. So where that enemy died, the favorite is dropped. You can loot it by regular end of turn looting, by ending your turn on that space, or by using a loot card, you can also retrieve it. So that is the difficulty in playing the build with the favorite, is that you really kind of have to plan out your moves and take out enemies that are on your route where you're going, so you don't have to take steps back and it slows you down in the scenario. On the other hand, it also makes it very simple each turn what you need to do. You target the enemy that has your favorite, and that's all you worry about. So you can really dumb this down and make it a very simple playstyle, but you can sometimes kind of trap yourself in a corner if your enemy happens to move in the direction you don't want to go, and then you have to go there to get your favorite back. So, and then the bottom of this card is a wound to target one adjacent enemy, move 3 with jump. Now, you'll probably never use the bottom. If you're using the favorite build, you're never going to use the bottom of this card because you're going to want to play the favorite almost immediately as soon as the scenario starts on turn 1 or 2. So then we're going to move on and talk about retrieval, which also has to do with the favorite. So it's attack 2, but if the target has your favorite, you get to return it to its active ability card. So this is a melee attack, but if you do it on the enemy that you just threw your favorite at, you're literally grabbing the favorite off of them and then causing damage to them, and then you get to have the favorite back without them having to actually die and having to loot it. So it's a convenient way to maybe get your favorite back if you really need it just to move on, and then someone else can finish that enemy off, or whatever the case may be. The bottom of this one is a move 1, loot 1, which also is really good for getting your favorite back because you can use that loot to get it back without actually having to be on the space. And then the next one is Close Cuts. This is another melee attack, which there's not a whole lot the Hatchet has. He has maybe a small handful of melee attacks throughout all his available cards, and you're generally not going to be doing melee attacks. But if you find yourself in a situation, Close Cuts here isn't a bad one because it does target 2 enemies if they're adjacent to each other there, gives you 1 experience. The bottom also is a melee attack 2, but also with a move 2. So this one's actually really good for getting you back out of danger, because as a ranged character, you'd be able to hit the enemy and then move away from them. The next one is Center Mass. It's an attack 3, range 3. The bottom is a move 3, push 2. You target 1 adjacent enemy. This is a good all-around basic card, and it's actually my favorite card early on to use the favorite with, because it's already an attack 3, range 3. If you use your favorite, it becomes an attack 6, which is a lot of damage, especially at level 1 against level 1 enemies. So I really like this one. I hang on to it for quite a while just because it's a very easy basic attack to use the favorite with. And then the bottom isn't bad either, especially if you got some traps or something that you can push an enemy over. The next one is Stopping Power. This is an attack 3, range 2. If you have wind to consume, it's +1 range and a push 2 with 1 experience point. So this is another good one to use the favorite on because it's still an attack 3. The only disadvantage is that if you don't have wind, it's only a range 2, so it's a little harder to use. However, we do have ways to activate wind if we want to play that way. We can kind of set it up so we can use some of these wind abilities, but it also can be kind of hard as the Hatchet to get wind when you really need it for some of these. The bottom is a move 3 with jump. Immobilize all enemies adjacent to any of the hexes you move through. You create wind with this one. You gain 1 experience point, but the card burns. So it's a move 3 with jump, but it's a burn, and yeah, you immobilize enemies to move through, but I just really don't think this is very good for a burn, so I wouldn't use it for the bottom, but the top is decent. The next one is double throw. Now, this one as a burn on the top isn't bad, especially at lower levels, because it's some decent damage. It's attack 3, range 4, which is really nice, target 2, you do create wind with it, you get 2 XP. So in the right situation, double throw is a really powerful move to use to kind of clear the way and just take out a couple of enemies really quick if they're low health enemies, or maybe finish a couple enemies off. But it is a burn, and we do have to be careful with our burns as the Hatchet, because if you remember, if we're playing the favorite, which is how I'm going to build the character here to show you how that would kind of work, the favorite takes up a burn slot, right? It's a card, it's an active card, it's gone. Now we're down to only 9 cards in our hand. So if we start using other burns too quickly, we're gonna end up with very few cards, and you can burn out very quickly as a Hatchet. Now, you'll do a lot of damage before you burn out, but you'll burn out quickly, and you may burn out a little too quickly if you're not careful. So make sure if you do use double throw that you're really getting the best benefit you can out of it. The bottom is also a burn, but it doubles the value of your next attack this round. Now, this one, I believe this works with the favorite. I think this works with the favorite because you're adding the attack to the single attack. So with the favorite and something like Power Pitch, which we'll come to in a bit here, it's already an attack 6, so it would be 9 with the favorite. If you double that value, that's 18 attack. So this would be a good boss killer combo. Use the bottom of double throw, use something like Power Pitch as top with the favorite, and you could do a ton of damage to a boss. But otherwise, it's probably not a burn you want to use on a regular enemy because, again, you don't have a lot of burns to use since you're already playing the favorite right off the bat. The next one is Disorienting Barrage. Now, this is only attack 1, range 3, target 3, and muddle on the top. However, I do like this one because of the muddle, and it does hit 3 enemies. So this is really good at mitigating enemy damage to you or your allies with that muddle there. And it does chip damage, so maybe if an enemy only has 1 HP left, you might be able to finish him off with it. And the modifier deck for the Hatchet does get really, really good. The farther on we go, we get to a point where almost everything is a +1. I don't even know if there's even +0s left. I think everything's a +1 or better. So at that point, later in the game, this Disorienting Barrage really becomes more of an attack 2 or 3 on a more consistent basis. So it's not a bad. It looks weak at first, but it's really not too bad. The bottom is a move 2, and then all adjacent enemies suffer 1 damage. Then you move 1, gain experience. All adjacent enemies suffer 2 damage, and then move 1 again. So this is a good way to make shielded enemies just die really quickly. Now, again, it's a burn, so you'd want to make sure you're really getting the most out of it. But you could use this on the same enemy too, make an enemy suffer 3 damage. So a couple of shielded enemies right next to each other that only have 2 or 3 health, this is a good way to finish them off. The next one is Power Pitch. So we just talked about that. Attack 6, range 3, 2 experience, it burns, but this would be a boss killer card. I really wouldn't use this on any other enemies as a burn, especially as we talked about. We want to be careful with our burns as the Hatchet after already playing the favorite. Really hang on to this one. Probably is more of a boss killer or maybe a really tough elite that you just want dead. The bottom, though, is handy to hang on to because it's a move 3 when it activates wind, which is going to help us with some of our other abilities, giving us more range and things like that. The next one, Follow Through, is an attack 2, range 4. You add +2 attack and gain 1 experience if the target has your favorite. So I like the top of this one when I'm playing the favorite because it makes it automatically an attack 4 on that enemy. So, you know, if we already hit him for 6 or 7 when we originally used the favorite, and then we do a follow through and we hit him for another 4, maybe 5 or 6 with a modifier, this will probably kill that enemy. So this is a really good way just to finish one enemy off really quickly and then move on. The bottom of this one also is a move 2 with push 2. You target one adjacent enemy with a push, and then if you have wind, you can move 2 more after the push. So again, really good for pushing enemies into traps if they're around, or maybe just getting them away from you. And then it actually is a move 4 in total if you have that wind. So not a bad card to hang on to for quite a while if we're using the favorite build. The next one is Second Wind. This is a heal 6 on yourself. It creates wind, 2 XP, also a burn. So this is kind of one of those oh crap cards like I'm gonna die, I need healing now. That's why you would use this. And yes, it's gonna hurt you because you're gonna throw that extra burn out there if you do this too early. However, it's better than having to negate damage and burn a card anyway, because at least you get to activate the wind and get the experience out of it. So that's what this card is. I consider it one of those oh crap cards, emergency heal, done. And then the bottom is a move 3, and then you get to add 2 and gain an experience point if you killed an enemy this round. So the bottom can be useful. If you did kill an enemy, then you get to move 5 out of it with an XP, which is really nice. And then we're going to move on to the X cards now. So Care Package is the first one of those. It's an attack 2, range 3, you heal 2, target one ally adjacent to the target of the attack. So you attack something at range 3. If you have a buddy, probably your tank, next to it, you get to heal your tank for 2. So this is kind of a cool card because you get to attack and heal in the same play. And then the bottom is a move 3, heal 1, range 1, activates Grass. Which a heal 1 is not really that good, except for maybe like getting rid of poison and wounded stuff. But it does also come with a move 3. So you get to either attack and heal or move and heal, which is a nice little combo to have. The next one is Extra Lift. This is an attack 2, range 3. If you have wind, it becomes attack 3, range 5, and you gain 1 XP. So if you're playing the wind game and you can kind of rely on having wind when you need it, this actually isn't bad. With a range 5, attack 3, that's pretty good. But if you're not going to be getting that wind on a regular basis, this is really just attack 2, range 3, and it's not that good. The bottom is a move 4, and then on your next 4 move abilities, you get to add +2 to the move. It activates wind, and then it's a burn card. So if you find yourself really struggling with movement, I suppose you might use this one, because 2 extra move, that makes all your moves at least a minimum of 4. But again, it's a burn, and it doesn't do any damage. And damage is king in Gloomhaven, so I really don't like that one as a burn there. And then the last one is Fancy Hat. This is a move 3, shield 2, creates dark, gain 1 experience, and then it burns. Now this only lasts for 1 round, so a move 3, shield 2 as a Hatchet is really not a good move, honestly. You should have a tank in the party, someone else that's supposed to be taking the damage and being up front. It shouldn't be you as the Hatchet, and it certainly shouldn't be you tanking and burning a card to do it. So I really don't like that top. The bottom of this one's an add +1 attack to all your attacks this round. So if you're playing like the multi-target build and you're doing a lot of your multi-target attacks like Double Throw, Disorienting Barrage, and others that we can find later, then the bottom of this one would make sense because you can power those up and give you +1 attack to those multi-attacks. But otherwise, I'd leave this one out. So as it comes to level 1 build, I pretty much usually just stick with the basic cards. All the level 1 cards, I don't use the X cards usually when I'm playing the Hatchet in the beginning. So that's what we're going to stick with here, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to level 2, and we'll talk about those cards. So Repeat Shot and Ricochet. Now, both of these are good. So Repeat Shot is attack 3, range 3, and you add 2, again, if it has your favorite. The target has your favorite, and you gain an experience point. So for a favorite build, this is really good because, this is an attack 5 instead of the other one ended up being an attack 4 if it had your favorite. And then the bottom is an attack 5, range 3, gain 1 XP, creates wind, and it burns. So again, there's another burn attack that I don't know that we'd want to use that one if we're playing the favorite build especially, because we're already going to be getting bonus damage anyway. And then Ricochet is an attack 2, range 3, but then attack 2 again, target a different enemy within range 2 of the target of the previous attack. So you attack one enemy at range 3 for 2, and then another enemy within range 2 of that one, you also get to attack for 2. So out of these 2 cards, I really like Ricochet, even though in Repeat Shot uses our favorite again. We already have one that's just doing 1 less damage with follow through, plus follow through actually has better range. So I'm going to go with Ricochet because being able to hit 2 enemies with this again, that's really good. And, if we have a power potion or we buff that somehow, this would be attack 3 both times. And then the bottom of this one is on your next 4 attacks, when possible, 1 enemy adjacent to the target suffers 2 damage. On those scenarios with a lot of shielded enemies, this burn might be worth it because we could be doing suffer damage to those enemies next to our target that have shields, getting through shields and taking care of a lot of those enemies really quickly. So I'm going to take Ricochet here for level 2, and then we're going to take Stopping Power out to put that one in. And then we'll move on to level 3, where we're going to find Fearsome Efficiency and Sharpened Blades. Now, Fearsome Efficiency is attack 6, range 4. If this attack kills the target, 1 enemy adjacent to the hex in which it died suffers X damage, where X is the amount of damage the target would have suffered in excess of what was needed to kill it. So essentially, if I attack 6 an enemy with 2 health, I pull a +0, so I do 6 damage. There's 4 damage left after that enemy dies that I can use on the enemy adjacent to it. And they would suffer that amount of damage, not be an attack. So it goes straight through shields and all that kind of thing. So as a burn, if there's two enemies next to each other and you can finish one off and then do extended damage to the other one next to it, it's not bad, especially if you think about using your favorite with this. It would be, attack 9. So you could hit something with 4 health, kill it, and still have 5 or more, depending on modifiers, damage to carry over to an adjacent enemy. The bad thing is you do have to have an adjacent enemy for this to actually work. And then the bottom of this one is an attack 1, range 3, but you add 2 and gain 1 XP if you killed an enemy this round. So if you already killed an enemy with your top attack somewhere, you could do an attack 3, range 3 on the bottom, which isn't bad. However, the other card is Sharpened Blades. On your next 5 attacks, you add +1 attack and wound. Now, this also burns after it's used up. But if you think about it, this is an additional 5 attack plus the wound, so that's another 5 damage from the wound, probably, unless the enemy happens to heal immediately on their next turn. So this is 10 damage over these 5 attacks, essentially, versus, this one with attack 6, spread between 2 enemies, you might do 10 damage with a really good modifier and another buff somewhere, but this one, you're guaranteed over the course of the card to do the 10. So it's more of a get your damage in now or get it over time situation. And the bottom of this one, though, is a move forward, which is really handy for us as a Hatchet, because we need that movement to kind of catch up and get our favorite and move on. So I'm going to go with the Sharpened Blades here, because I really like the top of this one because it adds that extra damage and wound. And again, it makes things like Disorienting Barrage, attack 2, range 3, target 3, muddle, and wound. So it makes it a lot more powerful. Of course, that would use all of your charges on this just about, but I do like this one, so we're going to take that one, we're going to add it in, and we're going to take out Close Cuts, our melee attack, to go ahead and throw that one in. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to level 4, where we're going to find Ripped from the Flesh and Overwatch. Both of these, again, are really cool, and they apply to the different builds. Ripped from the Flesh is your favorite build, Overwatch would be your multi-target build. So Ripped from the Flesh is a loot 1, and then if an adjacent enemy has your favorite, you may return it to its active ability. If you do, the adjacent enemy suffers 2 damage and gains wound. So it's kind of like Retrieval, except for instead of it being an attack 2, the enemy just suffers the 2 damage, and then also gets wounded, and then you get your favorite back. So that's actually a really good card, again, for just kind of finishing off the enemy and being able to move on and throw your favorite at somebody else. The bottom is a heal 3, range 2. You add Strengthen and gain 1 XP if you killed an enemy this round. So this is a really good card because we don't have a lot of heals for ourselves as the Hatchet. So rather than having to use our big burn heal, this is a good heal that we could use on ourselves and also strengthen ourselves to use on the next turn with our favorite maybe to make sure that we don't miss with it. But we have to make sure we kill an enemy first before we use this. So I really like Ripped from the Flesh. That's definitely the card that goes with the favorite build. Overwatch is an attack 3, range 4 if you have wind. It's also +1 attack and +1 range. So 4 attack, 5 range, gain 1 XP. So a basic just attack card more or less. A little bit buffed up if you have wind. The bottom though is the next 5 times an enemy ends a move ability within range 5, perform an attack 2, range 5, targeting the enemy. So this one is actually really cool because it does what the card says. It's Overwatch. You just basically put yourself in a good position, let all the enemies come towards you, and as they do, you get to attack every single one of them. And this can happen multiple times during the enemy's turn because it's anytime an enemy ends a move ability within range 5. So if you have 5 enemies and you just open the door of the next room and everybody kind of backed up and you're letting the enemies come in after you, every time one stops within range 5, you're going to attack it for 2. So this is a really cool card. It's a lot of fun to use. However, if we're going to be playing the favorite build like we're doing right now, we're going to want to go with Ripped from the Flesh instead. However, if you're not playing with a favorite because you don't like having to chase it down and stuff, Overwatch absolutely is a good card to take here and focus on that multi-target damage. So we're going to take Ripped from the Flesh, and then we're going to take out Double Throw to put that one in because Double Throw is kind of losing its punch at this point, at this level. That amount of damage for a burn, not so great. So we're going to take that out, put Ripped from the Flesh in. And the only caveat, Double Throw, if we're fighting a boss, you might want to put it back in for that bottom. But otherwise, I would go ahead and take it out. So let's move on to level 5. So level 5, like we discussed, for Jaws of the Lion characters is where they only get 1 card with a new special ability that comes with it. So in this case, it's the new favorite. It's basically just an upgrade that replaces the favorite. So you get to add 3 attacks still, but it also includes wound now and push 1 to a single target of any of your range attacks by marking with your favorite, and then when the target dies, it'll drop your favorite. You have to loot it just like you always did before. And this card cannot be activated at the same time the favorite is active. So you can only have either the favorite or the new favorite active. You can't have both of them, unfortunately. And then the bottom of this one is an attack 2, immobilize, range 4, creates wind. Which, again, you're probably not going to be using if we're using the favorite build. So we're going to take this card, obviously, and this one's a really easy replacement. Just take the favorite out, throw in the new favorite, which what we gained was wound and push now when we use it. So the wound, really good. The push, if there's a trap, really good. So this essentially becomes more of an attack 4, because the enemy will suffer that wound damage at least once, probably, and possibly more. So we'll go ahead and move on to level 6 now, where we're going to find Bombardment and Quick Turnaround. Now, Bombardment is attack 3, range 3, attack 3, range 3, attack 3, range 3. So you attack 3 times, it activates wind, you get 2 XP, it is a burn. So, again, back to the multi-target idea. If you're doing that, this is an awesome card. This is 3 turns all in one, because you get to attack 3 different things for 3 damage. It does burn. However, if you think about using something like Fancy Hat's bottom with this, that adds +1 to all your attacks during the round, this then becomes attack 4 3 times. So that's a really good for your multi-target build if you want to do that. The bottom is a move 3, all adjacent enemies suffer 1 damage, and then you push 1, targeting all adjacent enemies. So again, the bottom's good too for a good move, and then suffer damage to finish enemies off or get through shields, and then also push them away from you, which may prevent them from targeting you after that move. And then the other card is Quick Turnaround. Quick Turnaround is an attack 4, range 3, and push 2. If you have wind, you get an extra range and extra 2 push with it and gain 1 XP. And then the bottom is a move 3. If your favorite is in or adjacent to your hex, you may perform loot 1. So this is a nice good move, which if you didn't have quite 4 move to get to your favorite, you'd still be able to pick it up because of the loot 1 on this card. So for the favorite build, I would recommend Quick Turnaround, because attack 4 is a good one to use with the favorite, honestly, because it would be attack 4 with range 4 if we have wind, and then we get to use a favorite on them, which adds 3 more damage to that, so it would be like 7, and wound in this case since we have the new favorite. So I like this one, and the main reason is because Bombardment is a burn. I don't think it's a good idea to have this one and the favorite being used at the same time, because, again, we're limiting our cards. I'd rather save that burn for something else that I can use with the favorite, or another way to buff up more attacks like Sharpened Blades. So we're going to take Quick Turnaround in this case, and then we're going to take Second Wind out to put that one in, and then we'll move on to level 7, where we're going to find Excessive Force and Brutalize. So Excessive Force, on your next 5 attacks targeting an enemy that has your favorite, you add +2 attack. So that's good for the favorite, obviously, because, +2 attack every time you attack them. So on like a boss, this would be really good, because it's another additional 8 damage over those 4 attacks. And then the bottom is a move 3. If you have a wind, you can attack 2 at range 2 with 1 experience point. However, the other one is Brutalize, which also goes with the favorite. This one is a melee attack with 4, but you add +2 and gain experience if the target has your favorite. Then you get to return the token to your card, so you get your favorite back. And the bottom is an attack 5, range 4 stun, activates wind, 1 XP, but that's a burn, so questionable whether we want to use that one. I mean, with the stun in there and 5 damage, it could be right to use in the right situation. So I like both of these. Obviously, they both go with the favorite, but I would go with Brutalize here, just because it's not a burn, and we can use it again to continue to get that extra damage on new enemies. And ideally, if we're using the favorite, we're hitting the first enemy for probably attack 6+, maybe 7, maybe 8. And then if we go up and use this, we're over 10 damage already. And a lot of your basic enemies, that's going to kill a lot of them. So I'm going to go with this one. And it gives us another melee option for when we need it. And then we're going to take out Retrieval to put that one in, because it more or less is an upgrade to Retrieval. And then we'll go ahead and level up again to level 8, and we're going to find Shrapnel and Camaraderie here. So shrapnel, attack 2, range 3, target 2, and wound. If you have wind, it becomes +1 more target, so target 3 with an experience point. And then the bottom, the next 5 times you kill an enemy, all enemies adjacent to the hex in which it died suffer 2 damage. This one is kind of lackluster for a level 8 card. Like, a level 8 should be a lot more powerful than this, I feel like. Attack 2, target 3, and wound, range 3. Of course, it's only target 3 if you have wind. I just feel like it doesn't do enough damage. Now, again, you could be buffing this up with other cards and stuff and make it a lot more powerful. And then the bottom also, that would be very situational to be able to get enemies adjacent and be able to get them to suffer that 2 damage. So I really don't like that one that well for a level 8 card, to be honest. And then Camaraderie, heal 3 on yourself, heal 3 on one adjacent ally, activates wind. The bottom is a move 3, and you get to add +2 attack to your next attack during the turn if you're adjacent to an ally. So honestly, neither of these are too great, but I'm going to go with the Camaraderie just because it's another good heal for us as the Hatchet. Because again, we don't have a lot of ways to heal. We have a burn heal, and then we had Ripped from the Flesh, which gave us a heal, but that's all we've got. So we're going to go ahead and take Camaraderie. Plus we get that +2 attack if we're next to an ally, which would be good for when we use our favorite. So we're going to take Camaraderie, and we're going to take Power Pitch out to put that one in. And then the only caveat there, again, if we're fighting a boss, we may want to put Power Pitch back in for that high damage. So now we'll move on to level 9, where we're going to find 2 really good cards, Executioner's Axe and Heartseeker. So Executioner's Axe, one adjacent normal or elite enemy suffers 12 damage, creates dark, 2 XP, and it burns. I would take this card if this said one normal or elite enemy dies, because those cards do exist in the game and they're really powerful, but this one is a burn and they just suffer 12 damage. That will not necessarily kill some enemies. Some enemies will still be alive after suffering 12 damage. And it says normal elite. I'm not sure if we could use this on a boss or not. So, you know, a burn, now if it can be used on a boss, a burn to just do 12 damage to a boss, that's worth it. But in most situations, like if this was a just kill the enemy card, then yes, absolutely take it for the burn. It's worth it. But since it's got a limit to it, you know, 12 damage, I don't know. I feel like it's not as good as it could have been, or maybe should have been. And in the bottom, if you killed an enemy this round, return the favorite to its active ability, gain 1 XP. So the bottom's really cool because it's a way to get your favorite back without having to actually go loot it or kill the enemy that has it. You just kill an enemy anywhere in the map and you would get your favorite back. So if you had to, for some reason, skip your favorite and leave it lying back there, this is a way to get it back later in the scenario without having to run back and actually pick it up. So that's good. However, the other one is Heartseeker, which is an attack 4, range 4, stun. If you have wind, it's also wound and gain 1 XP. So as far as attacks go, this is a reusable stun that also is an attack 4 at range 4. That is really, really powerful. I like that, especially if you think about having stamina potions and being able to get this card back multiple rounds in a row. You could potentially use this card 2-3 times in a row. Stun lock an enemy or stun 3 different enemies while also doing damage. So I really like this one because it is a damaging stun that doesn't burn. And then the bottom, the next 4 times you kill an enemy, perform heal 3, range 2, blast action. Which, you know, that's good, but I should have a healer in the party. I shouldn't have to be the one doing heals and blessing if I'm playing as the Hatchet. And plus, that's another burn. So we're going to take Heartseeker for that top because of the stun. That's really what sets it apart for me, why I would take this one over Executioner's Axe. So Heartseeker it is, and then we're going to take out Follow Through to put that one in, because even with our favorite, Follow Through is only 4 damage. This is already doing 4, plus stunning, plus wounding if we have wind. So there we have our level 9 build, focused mostly on using the favorite and then the new favorite as much as possible. So we're going to be mostly targeting one enemy, just eliminating them, grabbing the favorite, and then targeting one more enemy and taking them out, letting our allies take care of everyone else. Although we do still have a few multi-target attacks where we can kind of help our allies out, but mostly we're going to be focused on single target, high damage with the Hatchet. So let's go ahead and talk about some items now that will work well with the Hatchet. And 4 head items, the first one is Eagle Eye Goggles. Do not leave home without them as the Hatchet, because when you use your favorite to get that +3 attack, and it's stuck on the enemy, you do not want to miss and not do damage. That is the most devastating thing that can happen to you while you're playing the Hatchet. So absolutely bring the Eagle Eye Goggles, use them when you use the favorite to make sure you don't miss. And then other than that, make sure that you use abilities or other items that give you strengthen once this is unusable. That way you can continue to have advantage when you attack. The next set with the armor here would be the the leather armor. Leather armor and its upgrades are great for the Hatchet because they don't cost you any negative modifiers, and they give you that little bit of protection. The other option though would be the flea bitten shawl. If no one else is using that item, it's really good because it would put you at 99, which means even when you're in melee range, as long as someone else is, you'll never get targeted, even if you went really fast. So the flea bitten shawl is actually a really viable option for the Hatchet as well. And then when we get to hand items, we're going to talk about, mostly we're going to look at range things. So the heater shield, if you got a hand free to use it, not a bad idea, just to help mitigate some damage. And then as far as weapons go, piercing bow is good for ignoring shields. So if you think about an enemy that has 3 or 4 shield, you're going to use your favorite and do an attack 6 or 7. Being able to ignore their shields, you could probably kill them with that attack. So this is really good. Downside is it can only be used one time. The other options would be something like the throwing hammer to add stun to a ranged attack, or even the volatile bomb once you're available to get that, because it can turn a single attack into that 3 area pattern. And if you think about using your favorite with that, I don't know if that would actually let you use the favorite, because the favorite can only attack one target, and each of these 3 dots would be considered a separate attack, I believe. So I think you may only still be able to use the favorite once, but you could at least get extra damage off on the other enemies in that pattern. So then the next thing would be feet, and the boots of striding will be great for you in the beginning to help you with movement when you really need it, and to get to where your favorite is, or to catch up with your party after going a little out of your way to get it. The next thing is like jet boots or rocket boots could be a good upgrade to those, because while we do have cards that have jump, we're generally not using, like, they're on the wrong side of a card of a burn, so we're using the burn side and not having the jump available. So it might be a good idea to go ahead and pick up something with jump. And then for our small items, potions will be your mainstay. Definitely pick up your stamina potions, your power potions, and your healing potions for the Hatchet, because the healing will come in handy. Obviously, you're going to need that from time to time. And then power potions will help you when, even if you're just doing the single target attack, like a major power potion here, we can add +2 to it. So, attack 7 goes up to attack 9 using our favorite. Or if we're doing a multi-attack, especially if you're doing the multi-attack build, you want this, because your attack 3 times ability would end up being attack 5 3 times. So no matter how you go with the Hatchet, power potion is definitely a good idea. Healing potions, stamina potions to get those cards back, because if we do use our favorite and then we use another burn, we're going to be really limited on our cards. So being able to recover cards with stamina potions and go longer before we have to take a rest is a really good move to have. And then the only other thing would be something like the Ring of Strength here, because that one gives you strengthen. So that's another way to make sure you have advantage when you use your favorite on an enemy. So I would recommend that as well once you have it, if you get it unlocked. And that pretty much covers all the items for Hatchet. So now let's go ahead and take a quick look at its perks. Now, Hatchet's perks get really, really interesting, because we get to a point where we're pulling mostly a bunch of +1s or better, and it makes us deceptively powerful, because we look at our card and we're like, oh, that's an attack 3. Well, once you're fully upgraded, it's going to be more like an attack 5 or maybe 6 on somewhat of a regular basis. So first things first, we don't have any abilities that negate scenario effects or armor effects, so that kind of sucks. You're always going to have to deal with scenario effects as a Hatchet. So we're going to go ahead and take our remove 2 -1s. We get rid of that twice, so we can get our -1s down. Now this is the best it gets negative wise. We're always going to have our -1, 2, and this miss card here, but we're going to have so many positive cards that pulling them should be relatively rare. So after we've done that, we have a lot of interesting remove zeros, add +1 cards or a +2 card. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and replace the 1-0 card with a +2 muddle, because that's just going to increase the chances that we pull a +2. Plus it's going to muddle, which is nice. And then after that, we'll go ahead and add cards here with the +2 wind cards. So again, we're got a lot better chance of pulling +2s now. And then we'll replace a +1 with a +3 card. And we can do that 3 times. So we're taking all our +1s and turning them into +3s, which is awesome. And then once we've done that, we're going to remove our other zeros. So we can take a 0 out, make it a +1 and a poison, and then do the same thing for a +1 wound. And then once we've done that, I would like to actually go down here and grab the stuns. So remove the +1 card to put a +1 stun in, and then a 0 to a 0 stun. Because stuns, whenever they happen, are always awesome. Because if you didn't kill the enemy, they at least can't move. It keeps everybody safe for an extra turn. And then we'll go ahead and pick up Refrain with the Immobilize on it, and then Elbow with the Push. So you can see once we're fully upgraded, we're looking at no +0s. Everything's either a positive or a rare chance of a negative. And more often than not, you're going to be pulling a +2 or a +3 because we have 5 +2s altogether, and then we have 3 +3s. So that's 8 cards that are better than +1s, and then everything else, we have 7 +1s. So we actually have more +2s and ×2 than we actually have +1s. And when we do pull a +1, it's going to do something extra. It's going to poison, it's going to wound, it's going to immobilize, it's going to stun. We do have 1 0, but it stuns, which makes it still really, really good. So the modifier deck for the Hatchet, I would say, is probably the best out of the Jaws of the Lion characters, and maybe one of the best out of the entire game, just because of all these positives and extra effects here. So with those covered, let's just talk about Hatchet a little bit more here. Again, he is a great single target, high damage dealer from range. He is a lot of fun to play, especially if you play with a favorite, because it kind of gives you a goal as you go through the map. Obviously, it's always like, okay, throw my favorite, go get my favorite, go to the next guy. And on your way there, you kind of do chip damage at other enemies on the way, then you get your favorite back, and then you move on to the next enemy. So it really makes him really good at attacking elites and handling elites too, because of the high damage that he can do. Although you can also play him, as I said, as a multi-target attacker, and he can actually do quite a bit of damage that way too. Now you'll burn out a little faster probably playing with a favorite, because you have to play that early on, and then that's already a card burned essentially. And then if you burn any more cards, you're gonna burn pretty quickly. If you play the multi-attack way, then you're gonna actually last longer probably, and be a little more free in what burns you use and when you use them. So it's really up to you how you want to play the Hatchet, but either of those two builds is perfectly viable, and it's really going to matter a lot about what the rest of your party is comprised of. And if you already have another guy that's already doing high single target damage, then you might be better off actually building the Hatchet for the multi-target damage. So that will conclude our guide on the Hatchet. If you'd like to continue watching the guide series, here's the next one right down here you can watch right now. And remember to like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. It really does help me and the channel out. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and keep on gaming.